Quiet, please. Good morning, everyone. Glad to see all these eager and energetic faces at this very important session. The legal profession has been so important to African Americans because often the political realm hasn't been accommodating to us, and even activism has its limits. We need to affect things and where the laws are being made. And in order to do that, we have to have people who are capable of interpreting this law in a way that benefits us and in a way that will help us utilize it to gain the most that we can gain for our people. So today we have two very distinguished judges here who will give you some understanding of what the law means to them, how they got involved in it, and how it affects us all. Before we meet them, we will have a short introductory video that will kind of give an explanation of where they're coming from in their own words. And here's the third member of the panel, this distinguished panel, Judge William Cousins. We have Shelvin Louise Hall, who's the chairperson of the Judicial Council of the National Bar Association. And we have the Honorable William Cousins, who is an appellate court judge, circuit court judge of Cook County. And we also have the Honorable Leo Holt, who's a retired Cook County circuit court judge. So we're going to hear a little bit about them in their own words, and then they will engage you. You have to be a system that we needed street demonstrations in order to make our legal assault on the system more effective. Judge Holt, could you explain a little bit more what you mean by that, please, to the students?
Well, I think social change, courts are generally maintain the status quo. If our courts were inclined to make huge steps in the way of righting social evils, you wouldn't have the social evil in the first place. Remember that everything that has happened to black people in this country has been lawful. Slavery was lawful. Segregation was lawful. And where we are today, in many of the things that disadvantage us, are lawful. And our courts are not likely to change that except through the political process. We got the right to vote not because the courts decided that we were entitled to the right to vote, but because of legislation prompted by the civil rights demonstrators in the street. The march, the Selma March, for instance, brought about the Voting Rights Act. And so it is today, I think, that going to court solely is not going to avail us of very much, in my judgment.
Just to make it a little bit more relevant to perhaps to some of these students, right now, as I was talking in another panel about what's going on with Busta Rhymes in New York, one of his bodyguards was just shot, and they're trying to force him to speak about what's going on and who's a suspect. But the code of the streets in many places, especially in Brooklyn where he's from, is that you don't snitch. And there's a big issue now whether you should snitch as a member of the community. And Baltimore is a big thing. There's a different code in the streets than the legal code that's in the courts. Can you speak a little bit to why African Americans take an antagonistic view toward the legal system? Judge Cousins, could you speak a little bit to why in the streets there seems to be an antagonism toward legal codes?
Because of the experiences that we've had, and because of the injustices that we have perpetrated upon us in everyday life, and because of the insensitivity of those who are involved in the administration of justice to do equal justice by all. But let me just divert a little bit.
Please.
I have a little bit of a different take, not altogether from what Judge Holt said. I don't want anyone to feel that the courts are in any way irrelevant and unable to do a good deal about ensuring that justice does prevail. In our serving as judges at different levels, we have different scope of impact of what we do. At the trial level, it's in a one-on-one situation, basically. What the judge does affects that particular defendant or litigant before him or her. And what that judge does with that particular litigant will, in large part, affect the way that litigant perceives the court and perceives the access to justice in the court. And you can make a difference. As a circuit court judge, and I know that I have made a difference individually in lives of some of the people who appeared before me. Every person who appeared before me, no matter what he or she was charged with as a defendant, was a human being. And I sought to give them that impression, and my feedback from them was that I was, by and large, giving them that impression. And if it were a matter of giving the person an opportunity to have an opportunity still to do something or to cut off that person's opportunity, then I really would take the course of action to be least punitive relative to that person, to afford them. And I've had people come back to me later after they have served their time, if they had to serve time, or if they did not have to serve time, thank me for what I have done. And that's a great satisfaction. And at an upper level on the appellate court, oh yes, we decide according to law. I have great differences with our Supreme Court justice on the United States Supreme Court, Scalia in particular, who talk about interpreting things relative to original intent and that sort of a focus, and who down in Puerto Rico just recently was speaking to Puerto Rican law officers and judges, and said those who don't believe in original intent, those who believe that our Constitution is a living document, they are idiots. Now that's an injudicial statement for a justice of the Supreme Court to make. We, or those like me who believe that, and who's always believed that our Constitution was a living document, we are not idiots, but something's wrong with his thinking, really, relative to the insensitivity to justice and seeking to do justice for all. We have that to contend with, and those who believe as I do that our Constitution, we are bound, all of us, by the, we have to follow the Constitution, but everybody looking at the same words really do not interpret the context of those words in the same way. And that makes a difference. I am perturbed about our present Supreme Court because of the slant that it has and the views that all have, or some have, that all we do is sit back and we interpret the law. It's just true. We interpret the law. That's the role of a judge, to interpret the law. But there are some situations that are not white and black. Everything that comes before you has not been something that has come before you before. You have to interpolate. In interpreting what you do, you interpret it, in my view, in a way that would do justice for all. Now, that's my take. So we can, by virtue of what we do, and in terms of our decisions, create a situation which will cause the law to be more enlightened rather than less enlightened. Let me just say one last thing. When I went to law school, there were 3 blacks in my law class who admitted. I received a letter just yesterday from the law school. I attended Harvard Law School. There are 73 blacks in the class is still about the same size. That has come about by virtue of efforts being made to be affirmative. There's nothing wrong with affirmative action. I have a problem with those who have tried to demonize affirmative action because they don't want to see forward motion go forward. We have to be affirmative in what we do in order to make progress. Those of you sitting here today have a great opportunity. You know, I'm really encouraged by what I see. I see budding lawyers. I see budding judges. And during this day and time, your prospects are not as limited as they were in my time. You can be what you want to be if you just stay on the case and do the best you can every step of the way and realize that it can be done. But you have obstacles to overcome. They will always be there. Never forget that. Never forget who you are and be proud of where you come from.
All right. The three panelists today are living proof that you can really become what you set your mind to do. How many of you in here know